office ceremony for the Command and Control Directorate, PEO IWS 6. This ceremony will also include a retirement ceremony for Captain Andrew Thompson. I am Commander Warren Baum, the Master of Ceremonies today. Will the guests please rise for the arrival of the official party, the national anthem, and the invocation. Military, attention. Captain, United States Navy, arriving. Command and Control Directorate, arriving. Integrated Warfare Systems, arriving. Bosun, retire the side voice.
Aye, sir. South, left, right, face. Forward, march.
Commander Stephen C. Bathmaner, United States Navy, retired, would now offer the invocation.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we praise and thank you today for being our God and for being sovereign over this world and all that exists and happens in it, and for your great salvation through the gift of your Son, Jesus Christ. We especially want to thank and praise you today for the life and naval career of your servant, Captain Drew Thompson, for the support of his family over many years of faithful, dedicated, skillful, and effective service to the United States Navy, and for the impact he made on the many military and civilian communities in which he served over the years. He's proven to be a strong and outstanding leader during his Navy assignments, which included service at the tip of the spear as the commanding officer of USS John Paul Jones, and as a major program manager twice in PEO IWS. We thank you for blessing Captain Thompson with operational command at sea and system acquisition major program management assignments, from which he was able to make substantial contributions in support of the Navy's fundamental objective, to fight and win in combat. May his example and your spirit inspire us all to stay true to supporting the Navy's mission with energy, commitment, skill, and perseverance. When we face the inevitable challenges of that endeavor, may we recall what is written in Romans 5. But we also glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance, character, and character, hope. As he moves ahead to the next chapter of his life of service, I pray that you would continue blessing Captain Thompson and his family with circumstances and activities they find both rewarding and fulfilling in accordance with your will. May they remain faithful to your leading and submissive to your wisdom and guidance throughout the rest of their lives. Please bless today's ceremony and celebration with your presence. And I pray all this in your holy name. Amen.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce the host of today's ceremony, Rear Admiral Seiko Kano, Program Executive Officer, Integrated Warfare Systems.
Welcome to the coolest, most air-conditioned setting we could have picked in July. I did forget something. I was going to bring, as I got up here, I was going to put on a mustache and then say there's only one room for one mustache at the exchange of office. Drew has the best mustache of anybody. We've got a lot of distinguished guests here. We've got Admiral Hicks, Admiral Trugan, Admiral Page, Admiral Horn. I think the crew of the USS Pinckney, raise your hand. If you were the crew, that's awesome. Pinckney's in the house. A lot of folks here, IWS 6 team. Raise your hand if you're part of the IWS 6 team. Awesome. Women and men of IWS. Thank you all for joining us here as we celebrate 27 years of Captain Drew Thompson's dedicated and faithful service to our nation. It's not surprising drew a huge crowd just because we all know what he's done for IWS 6, for IWS as the PEO, but then also for the United States Navy. We also have some very, very important people with us today. Drew's wife, Amy, who's been with Drew for almost his entire naval career. They started dating when Drew was a freshly minted Lieutenant JG on his first ship, and their first date was at a Padres game. Their passion for baseball continues. We were just talking about that. And I think they made a goal that you're going to visit every single MLB park in your lifetime. So, how many have you visited? Not enough. So, after 24 years of marriage, I guess you're still working towards that goal. Maybe getting that RV and traveling all the way around. Thank you for supporting Drew all these years. I know there's a lot of sacrifice that went into that. I've also heard through very legit sources that there is life after the military. I've also been told that it might be better, but I don't know. His children, Hank and Mia, are with us. So last week, Hank had his big baseball tournament in Atlanta and won the game with a 2-run walk-off home run. Outstanding. And then Mia is also a big deal and is going into her senior year at Drexel in Philly. And she found that her favorite class is how to teach engineering to middle schoolers. First, God bless you. And we need more of you in this world. So thank you. Drew's mom, Becky, has traveled here from New Orleans. And his mother-in-law, Linda, has come in from San Diego. So thank you all for making the journey to be here with us today and for all your support with Drew over the years. And we also have Drew's friends from junior high, Tyson and his wife, Kristen. Raise your hand. Awesome. Who's traveled all the way from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Not with us today, but certainly supporting from afar, as they have during Drew's life and career, are his stepmom, Gloria, his siblings, Roddy, Dennis, Jorge, and Vanessa, who are all rooting from afar. I think one's even in Japan, touring around. Drew, the Navy and the nation express our gratitude to you and your family for everything you've done and the service you've given. Please join me in a round of applause for Drew's family and friends. I think I first met Drew when he was the Papam Regis Development in IWS 10. made an impression on me because he was this big strategic thinker and just was able to see the problem from a different lens. If you look at his career, he's got a great blend of operational tours. He served on the USS Gary as the OXO, USS Bunker Hill as the SICO, USS Pygmy as the weapons officer and CSO, USS Nimitz as the surface strike officer, and then USS John Paul Jones as the XO, and then fleeted up to CO, where he tested the newest, latest and greatest Aegis baseline 9C. But in addition to all this, he also has some very substantial acquisition tours. PD 452, where you were the EA to a number of distinguished guests here. PAPM in IWS 10, MPM for IWS, what was IWS 8, Small Service Combatants, Integrated Combat System, and then another MPM tour here as IWS 60, the Command and Control Directorate. These tours, combined with Drew's natural talent, has given Drew a superpower. He's bilingual, in that he's able to buffer between the engineers and the technologists and the sailors, speaking the language of each side extremely fluently. He's figured out and identified hidden organizational barriers on each side, and has come up with solutions that have put capability into the hands of the fleet faster than ever before. One example of what he did with the Nimitz fleet battle problem that just happened a few months ago, came up with an unprecedented new kill chains, not just one, but many kill chains. He helped architect this. He thought it through, using CEC and the virtual Aegis Baseline 9 twins that we put for the first time in Aegis combat system on the Nimitz carrier, and then Aegis Baseline 9 system on a Baseline 7 ship. Nurturing this from idea to deployment in just a handful of months, absolutely no simple feat. As the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group commander did his outbrief with Admiral Picaro, PAC Fleet voiced how extremely impressed and happy he was at how aggressive we were at getting capability out to the fleet. That's Drew. That's the talent of Drew. Another example of how Drew has excelled in the adoption of innovation technology to the fleet very quickly is comms as a service. He was able to transition it successfully from this prototype that was being done out of our labs into a capability scheduled for fleet delivery, successfully crossing that valley of death that we so unsuccessfully do. And now CAS is honestly the cornerstone of, we can't talk a lot about it, so I'm going to talk around it, but it is a cornerstone of what the Navy is going to do in the future. That was Drew Thompson who did that on his watch. It's going on all ships in the U.S. Navy. Absolutely critical at how we fight today and tomorrow. Done in just a few short years. He made it look easy, but this was far from easy. And the reason why I say that is because he had to use his acquisition savviness. This wasn't just kind of a technical issue. This was, how do you navigate around the system that was fighting him every step of the way? How do you move money around? How do you create act strategies? I remember going through all of these iterations with you, and the creativity that you've done in order to get that was Herculean and extremely impressive. Because of this, the CAS team delivered a deployed quality capability 2 years ahead of schedule. 2 years ahead of schedule. In the fight of tomorrow, champions like Drew are the ones that will determine if we win or lose. They're the ones. A lot of senior leaders today are trying to figure out the core problem of what's stopping organizations like the United States Navy from innovating faster, better. You've probably seen it in the news and the headlines. I know I read about it all the time and I get pressured all the time. Safi Bakal, who's the author of Moonshots, was teaching a course at Stanford with government folks there about organizational design and modern warfare. And he said there's 4 main factors that successful, innovative companies have, or organizations. They have strategy, they have access to technology, they have leadership who believes in that, and they have adoption. So leaders in the Navy are scratching their heads and they're asking themselves, okay, is it strategy? Do we need strategy? No. We have a pretty well-defined national defense strategy that flows to the CNO's NAV plan. We do have a strategy. Okay, then, is it innovation or technology? No. The Navy has a lot of research facilities. I think the DoD has over 76 research and development centers, labs, field activities, with a lot of smart people that know how to innovate. Okay, so leadership. Well, our SecNav, our CNO, our RDA, our Fleet 4 stars are all pounding the table all the time for innovation. So maybe it's not leadership. Where we struggle and where the main problem is in adoption. Adoption of that technology. You can spend billions on great technology, on dozens of innovation labs, but if you don't have the energy or the creativity into winning those internal adoption battles, that technology will die. This is where you need our SEALs or our special forces of the acquisition community, the Drew Thompsons of the world. Leaders that can lead organizations to absorb new technologies, new ideas, and help the fleet in adoption. Like he did with CAS, CEC, ACNS, Navigation as a Service, a ton more that will enable new kill chains today. Not in 5 years, not in 10 years, today. Drew's superpower. So you might ask, what did Drew do specifically that made him so successful in adoption? First, he focused on small changes versus big bang ideas. We in the Navy tend to focus a lot on big stuff, big combat system baselines, bigger radars, bigger ships, as opposed to the very small changes that can make enormous differences. How he restructured the CEC Block 2 program is a great example of this. I remember him pitching me the idea of how he was going to break up CEC Block 2 into smaller delivery chunks to the fleet to go faster, and how he figured out a corresponding acquisition strategy to support that. It was brilliant. I think at the time I was like, what? And he was 5 steps ahead of me. He was 5 steps ahead of all of us. You know, not just leading the adoption, but teaching his bosses, teaching the organization how to absorb new ideas faster. This goes beyond talent. This is brilliance. Second, he focused on prototyping, testing out algorithms, data paths, systems incredibly fast, rather than making big plans and getting stuck in those big plans with slow outcomes. ACNS is an example of this. In 2020, that was an FNC designated called No Gaps. I'm not going to tell you what the acronym is. Drew led his team to have this prototyped and transitioned into ACNS, what we know as ACNS, which was installed on USS John Finn in 21. So FNC in 20, on a ship in 21. Incredible. Another example was the prototype we just did again with the Nimitz Carrier Striker. From thinking to that idea to deploying 10 months, I think, of the development and certification of really, that interface, his team created a CEPI RESTful API. Again, I'm not going to go into what that is, but it was able to change CEC and exchange different data from non-traditional CEC sources and be exchanged with other assets in its carrier straight group via CEC. Something we didn't even think about doing. He did that 10 months, 4 months of import testing, and at-sea experimentation, tested within the year, 14 months total, that the carrier strike group now had access to. Absolute game changer. Those systems now the fleet want as leave-behind systems on all ships that go into that AOR. Drew knows that as an adopter, you want to fail a lot. If you only try things that don't fail, then you won't discover the truly important breakthroughs. The ones where everyone gave up because they just thought that it couldn't be done. And then who will discover them? Our adversary, who's taking those risks, who's working through the night, the 9th failure, to get to that 10th iteration, the one that works. Third, he paid attention to and focused on the right strategy and organizational structure to help him and his team with adoption. He led the way with the first program in the PEO to successfully integrate new model-based systems engineering principles with DevSecOps and Agile development early in the requirements development process, which resulted in ensuring critical enabling CEC capabilities are fielded extremely fast, identified in the NOAA, the Naval Operational Architecture. He developed a strategic view and framework for new navigation systems engineering agent contracts supporting and transitioning to navigation as a service, which will allow for system of systems approach to navigation systems acquisition and align to the integrated combat system. With the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group fleet battle problem, he was the one that emphasized that we needed organizationally not just the technology piece, but to exercise how we would get feedback quickly from the sailors and wrap it into our development process quickly. By the way, we're not good at that. We don't even know how to do that. We really don't. It sounds like we should, right? But it's not our nature to put something out there, get feedback, and then iterate off of that feedback. He said it in a meeting, I remember that. He's like, we don't do this. We've got to be better at this. He was also the first program office to really embrace knowledge management with adoption of his own apps. By the way, like AWS 6 is the app royalty in the PEO, and they adopt and they make their own applications, whether that's travel, whether that's personal tracking, whether that's whatever, I don't know. You have so many apps that we've adopted them in the PEO. But he set that culture for his team for adoption. And he did his own resource planning and how you did that completely with your own team. We need the Drew Thompsons of the world around here, and we need a cadre of them, frankly. I think if we're gonna be successful, we need to figure out how to create a career path specifically for champions of adoption and design. We're not organized like this. We shouldn't be at Drew Thompson's retirement ceremony. We should be at his promotion ceremony. It's people like Drew that make the U.S. Navy the best Navy in the world. Thank you, Drew, for the capability you've given the fleet and everything you've given the U.S. Navy. The future will hold even more exciting challenges for you. I honestly can't wait to see what's next for you. Your future is extremely bright. So because this is a weird blended retirement and change of office ceremony, we're not done yet. We do need to hand over the baton of IWS 6 to Captain Tim King. Tim is an MPM veteran and is coming off an incredibly successful tour as the IWS 11 Terminal Defense Systems Major Program Manager, where he was another big thinker and skilled adopter. Tim has been an engineering duty officer since 2003, had numerous acquisition tours with field activities, special mission program offices, the NRO, OPNAV, IWS in 6 and 2 and 11, and now back to 6. He's also had a number of operational tours as well, with his last as the CSO on the USS Harry Truman, CVN 75, in which he deployed supporting the return of Arctic carrier ops and dynamic force employment. I can't think of anyone more fit for the job. Tim, thank you for your continued leadership as you take the program to the next level. Thank you and your wife Alice and your children Benjamin and Jennifer, who could not join us today but are certainly in for new adventures you take over 6-0. Congratulations, Drew, on an exceptional career. It's been an honor to have served with you. I could not be happier for you and Amy, and more proud for you as you complete this journey in the Navy. I hope you achieve your goal of making it to every single MLB ballpark. The Navy and the nation will miss you greatly. I wish you all the very best, as we traditionally say in the Navy, fair winds and following the seas should be. Thank you.
Rear Admiral Kano will now present Captain Thompson's End of Tour Award. Yes, please rise. Military, attention to award. The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Legion of Merit Gold Star in lieu of second award to Captain Andrew J. Thompson, United States Navy, for service set forth in the following citation. For exceptional meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding service as Major Program Manager, Command and Control Directorate, Program Executive Office, Integrated Warfare Systems, Washington, D.C., from December 2019 to July 2023. Superior expertise and his ability to manage technological advanced programs and deliver within cost and schedule targets have been instrumental to ensuring unprecedented success across the entire $360 million annual command and control budget. Through his strategic and deliberate planning, Captain Thompson fostered a competitive environment to build an industrial base capable of bringing critical antenna and networking capabilities to the warfighter faster. His resolute leadership during this time of great naval power competition directly led to the effective delivery of capability, enabling the Navy's distributed maritime operations strategic vision. His superior performance highlights the culmination of 27 years of honorable and dedicated service. By his bold leadership, wise judgment, and complete dedication to duty, Captain Thompson reflected great credit upon himself and upheld the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. For the President, W.J. Galanis, Vice Admiral, United States Navy. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium Captain Andrew J. Thompson, United States Navy, Major Program Manager, IWS 6.
Hey Warren, thank you very much. Thank you Joe Caprio, Warren Barn, Bernard Fumbles, and the rest of Team 6 today who made today's celebration and ceremony possible. Mary Elizabeth, thank you. That was awesome. Mary Elizabeth is the daughter of Greg Olsos, one of our department heads here in Team 6, so thank you very much for coming and singing the national anthem today. It was a lovely rendition. Thank you very much. Admiral Kano, thank you very much for your super kind remarks, and also the joy and the professionalism and the trust you extend in me in order to lead the teams that we work with and continue to deliver. Right? I mean, we talk a lot about kind of what I did over the past few years here, but you know, had I not had the trust and then the commensurate authority and responsibility to go and do that kind of stuff that you talked about, it would never have happened. Thank you very much, man, for giving me that opportunity and letting me run amok. A few months ago, where's Jason Kidd? Jason, there you are. A few months ago, I had the pleasure of attending your retirement ceremony and serving as one of your side boys. And as Jason reflected on his career, his years of service, and he thanked his family and friends and his shipmates, he remembered his time in the service as a series of failures. Jason, however, is a deeply humble man, and that failure was a bit. Because it was just Jason being modest, right? But Jason had a spectacular career. But it wasn't necessarily the career that he thought he wanted. It was, however, the career that he and our Navy needed. And as I think back on Jason's speech and in his career, and I keep on thinking of the Rolling Stones and the wise words of Mick Jagger when he said, "You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you get what you need." I think many of us share that kind of feeling and observation about their lives and naval careers as they look back and reflect on where they went, what they did, who they became, and the lives they impacted and were impacted by. We don't always get what we want, but we do get what we need. So as I stand here under the Constitution's fighting top, I am constantly pulled back to a firm memory I had in my first summer in the Navy, plebe summer 1992. I suspect most of us don't have memories of their plebe summers, for those of us who did it, but that one always has a strong grip in my head. It was late July, about this time of year, maybe 31 years ago, and the Naval Academy shipped all us plebers to here, to the Navy Yard. It was a different neighborhood then. And we spent time in this museum as we waited to go over to the Marine Corps barracks at 8th and I in order to watch the sunset parade. Again, as a young plebe, I had no idea what I was getting myself into or what the experiences were, but to this day, I have strong memories of coming here and, well, not getting yelled at by my upperclassmen, but also, experiencing the power of being in that building and being surrounded by the history therein. For me, it was also just a few quiet moments where I began to understand how big the Navy was and what I had gotten myself into. And I'd never forgotten this place. And so I'm really humbled a lot by the opportunity to bookend my career here today. So to the staff of the Navy Museum, thank you very much for hosting us and allowing us to gather here today and celebrate my departure. So we're nearing our 250th birthday of our nation and our Navy. And although I've done little in 27 years of service that merits discussion in a place like this, I would like a moment, if you would so humor me, to reflect on my years in the company of the great sailors and their great deeds remembered here. Not necessarily as a failure, but as a voyage of discovery. A voyage with hopes, goals, and dreams, but certainly with an outcome I never expected nor asked for, but wouldn't trade for anything now that I have. I am going to share a few sea stories with you all. These stories will be my way of thanking all of those I served with over these many years, with whom I served and who made me the naval officer that I am today. I often say that we are creatures of those that made us, or that some would say, ducks make ducks. So little bits of my philosophy of leadership and leading come from these experiences. As Admiral O'Connor noted, you probably saw in the bio, my first ship was the USS Gary, and my first XO was Bob Bonner. Bob's here today. Bob works in PMS 443, right, Bob? Close enough. Bob was my first XO on my first ship. So every time I go into the building, I see Bob and Ensign Thompson all over again. But the other thing I see every time I see him is I remember him singing Monty Python's Lumberjack song as he carried a big flashlight as he rolled his way down to conduct the daily messing and berthing inspection. At that moment and for years afterwards, when I thought of Bob belting out, "I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay. I sleep all night and I work all day," I thought he was nuts. Until I started singing the lumberjack song too. on my way to messing and birthing when I was the XO of John Paul Jones. Fewer sailors probably knew what I was singing, and I probably am nuts too, but as I reflect on the daily ritual, I just remember it was the best part of the XO's day. Never had I felt as close to a crew and to each and every sailor on the ship as when I was the XO. Belting out the lumberjack song manifested that joy, that closeness, and that camaraderie. And for those of you in Team 6 and elsewhere in the building, that's also why I walk around today and say hi to you, give you fist bumps, all that kind of stuff. It's the same thing. And the lumberjack song is still playing in my head too, I promise. I just played it for Mia for the first time. She thought it was the funniest thing she's heard in a long time. There's one other shipmate I need to thank for my time in Gary, Chief Warrant Officer Joe Boyd. Every day and for nearly 2 years, Joe sent me on missions to trace, walk, and draw every system in that ship's engineering plan. Most days ended with Joe telling me that I was on the verge of downing the electrical safety, or the tag out, or the fuel oil renewable quality programs, or engineering logs, or something, you name it. Every day and every watch was a teachable moment with Joe. Thank you for helping me learn how important it is to know how things work and why they were built. When I got to Bunker Hill, I got to be part of a great team that not only made Bunker Hill great, but formed many of the relationships that laid the foundations of teams to come. Mike Ziegler, Johnny Redford, Mike Brown, Tom Brand, Dave Sparkle, Ken Ritter, Clint Carroll, Tim Dernbach, all made me better. And when we got the band back together as part of the maintenance team delivering JPJ's combat systems modernization, it's no wonder that the trust that we built up as young lieutenants and chiefs in Bunker Hill manifested itself a decade later to make JPJ the great ship and crew that delivered Aegis modernization on time. The power of a team cannot be underestimated. One of the captains I worked for in Pinckney, PDG 91, is here today, Vice Admiral Jim Malloy. Hi, sir. Thank you for coming. Erica Hoffman's here today, too. As well as a few other Pinckney alums that you probably don't know. Bob Shabak may or may not have made it today. He was the baseline manager at the time. Joe DiPietro was our rep from 400D. Did Joe make it? And of course, we had Stan Williams, the almighty Stan Williams, as our C-SWAT project officer. One of the first lessons I learned when I showed up as a department head was from Joe DiPietro himself. We were executing the ship's post-shakedown availability, and Joe warned me to be careful of two people in the shipyard. They and some guy. Those two people were going to do all sorts of horrible things to the ship if you weren't careful. The other big thing I learned from Admiral Malloy. There are a couple of good reasons why I keep that picture in that program of Pinckney mooring in Sydney Harbor so close. It's in the back page of your picture, you'll see it. It's a really cool shot. Again, one, because it's a really cool picture. If you ever have the opportunity to see detail entering and leaving Sydney Harbor, I highly recommend it. But that wasn't just a normal port visit that day. It was Pinckney's maiden deployment, and we were dispatched to Sydney for our Navy to show the Australians our newest Aegis baseline. This was part of a larger effort that eventually turned into the Hobart-class air warfare destroyer program. So in order to show off the ship and their crew, Admiral Gary Ruffhead, who was then Commander of Pacific Fleet and the Royal Australian Navy Chief of Navy, helicoptered on board Pinckney to ride the ship in through sea detail into the entering port. The two flag officers came on board of the bridge, along with the harbor pilot, Royal Australian Naval officer, and then Admiral Malloy came and told me I had the deck at the time, and he said, I got to deal with these guys. And he said, park the ship. And he extended me the kind of trust that you need in order to be a successful naval officer to these days. And so we parked the ship, had a great visit in Sydney. Everyone now knows what's become of the Hobart-class destroyer program. And so thank you, Admiral. Thank you for extending me the trust and teaching me how to do the same. When I went to my third department head tour on the staff of Strike Group 11, I was very fortunate to work for Admiral Terry Blake and Fozzie Miller, the Chief of Staff, who was Vice Admiral Roy Kitchener. That staff and the rest of the team on the Nimitz Strike Group allowed me to serve and take on larger leadership roles. It was that opportunity and leadership they provided me that got me selected for command. It was there I learned I had the responsibility to find and grow the leaders, the next batch of leaders, So thank you, Admirals, for giving me that opportunity and teaching me that lesson. The next lesson was hammered home when I got to work with the team at Aegis BMD. So many of those folks are here today. Admiral Hale couldn't make it, but Admiral Page, Admiral Hicks, Admiral Horn, I don't know if John Fiore made it, but Bob Savak, again, Angie Beach, Rebecca Gassler, Tom Halverson's here, right? Shaw Jari, where are you? There's probably a few other folks in the audience from that time at Aegis BMD that we all got to meet and work together with. I thought I was going to the ballistic there to learn about ballistic missile defense. Instead, I learned about the power of acquisition and how cool it was to buy and build things for our ships and our sailors and our airmen and our Marines. Although my years at Aegis BMD set the path for the second part of my career, it also set me on the right path for John Paul Jones. I do remember most fondly my time serving in John Paul Jones. Command at sea, command of the ship of the line. There is no higher honor, no higher calling in our naval service. And it really did come together there. We built and formed a great team. John Duffy, Matt Hall, Marilyn Kennard. We learned that we were a great ship and we could do great things. 10 of those ship's department heads, including Brian Sims, hi Brian, and division officers from that time continue to serve and have either completed tours as commanding officers or have been selected one. Including the guy on the John Finn when I put ACNS on his ship was one of my department heads too. It's a small Navy sometimes. We delivered on NAVOD on time. We set the Navy's record for the longest surface-to-air missile engagement. We crushed an insert, shifted home port to Hawaii, and in keeping with the tradition set by Admiral Horn on the Lake Erie, we won the NAY Award. There isn't a thing that the crew couldn't and wouldn't do for each other. There are too many good stories for me to tell about my time in John Paul Jones, and many of you have heard a few of them. But there's one story I would like to tell, and it starts with Sean Stackley. I think a few of you might know him. So Sean Stackley was RD8 then, as he was for a long time. And he came to visit John Paul Jones as we wrapped up the industrial portion of the modernization and we moved into the testing period. So we're at 32nd Street Naval Station in San Diego. And Mr. Stackley comes across the bow and I greet him on the quarterdeck, which happened to be on the flight deck at the time. And he says, well, I haven't been here since trials, because he was the production officer when we built John Paul Jones 21 years prior. So I tell him, well, I hope you like what we've done to the place. So I take him on a rather lengthy tour of the ship and all the spaces and compartments where we had taken and installed the brand new combat system. And after we were done with the tour, it was Mr. Stackley and I who were sitting on the flight deck. We're standing on the flight deck together, getting ready to go to send him ashore. And he kind of pulls me aside and he says, so you have a prospective game coming for your ship, Ensign Persley. And I'm like, what does RDA know about my LOTAR? How does he know who my incoming ensigns are? And so he tells me, well, that's the youngest daughter of my roommate from the Naval Academy. I told her to pick your ship. So a few months later, we're out to sea, Ensign Persley's reported, and we're in the Eastern Pacific, and we're doing Aegis baseline testing, because that's what we did a lot of. And we're getting gas from the Canadian Oiler Protector. And that was a long day at sea. We had to go alongside once. The fueling rigs didn't come working quite right, so we had to break away, go into waiting station while they worked on it, pull back in, get gas from one line that didn't have a lot of pressure behind it. But at the end of the underway replenishment, Ensign Persley was the conning officer. She and I were at the bridgeway working together in order to get the ship up from alongside. We put the hammer down, and as the ship came up to full speed, the rooster tail started coming off the back end. As we pulled away from the protector, Claire Persley said, "This is so cool." And that's how I knew. I knew that I was absolutely doing the right thing. So that's how we got here. That's how I learned to take a chance on a sailor, not to pass on that teachable moment, and to find and grow the leaders. And for the past 8 years, I've been a fantastic member of the team of professionals here at PEO IWS. At IWS, I found a second phase of my career. And I've really loved working here at the Navy Yard with this fantastic group of engineers, financial professionals, contracting officers, logisticians, lawyers, you name it. The team of teams you need in order to buy, build, and deliver capabilities to our Navy today. I also had the pleasure of forming deep and trusting relationships with many folks from industry. Too many to mention without leaving someone out, and I think they're all here. Lockheed Martin folks, Raytheon teammates, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, L3, Lighthouse, you name it, across the broad spectrum of industry partners. I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to work with each and every one of you and with you all in your corporations. There are few sea stories from my time here at the Navy Yard, but there is no shortage of feelings of gratitude and appreciation for all the great memories here. To all the Paplums I've served with, Brian, Greg, Joe, Kevin, Sanjeev, Dina, Katie, Beth, Chris, Michelle, we did remarkable things together and delivered major upgrades and capabilities to the Aegis Combat System, to the Ship Self-Defense System, to the LCS Combat Systems, CEC, and all their navigation sensors and tools. Everyone here in the audience today did something as a valued member of these many teams to deliver something useful, practical, and powerful to our sailors, airmen, and Marines. I'm very proud of our work, and I'm proud to have served with you all. There are 3 ladies, however, that deserve special thanks. In my 6 years, not now, Joe, different group. My 6 years as a program manager here at IWS, I had the pleasure and joy to serve with Stephanie, Robin, and Kitty as my deputies. I think 2 of them are here, right? Did Stephanie make it? Hi, Kitty. Without a doubt, every measure of success that we had as a program is because they were such strong, supportive, and collaborative teammates. They were the best shipmates that a program manager could hope for. I think we made a great leadership team, and what we did because of your contributions and leadership. Thank you very much. I'm going to try to bring this plane home, or land this ship, or whatever you want, by telling one last story. So this is, again, sort of John Paul Jones related, not as much. So it would have been probably the summer of 2014. We were out to sea a lot again. And it was the first year of Hank starting his baseball career as a 6-year-old player doing coach pitch baseball. And that particular season, his team, Hank got selected for the East Lake Little League All-Star team as a 6-year-old, doing coach pitch and then some machine pitch stuff. And I was at sea for a lot of that experience. I was able to make it back for a couple of the last games, including the tournament championship game, which Hank also won in a walk-off. But as that experience happened and unfolded, I was hearing about what the family was having, the fun and the joy that the family was having on the ball field. And after the run ended, I asked Amy a very simple question. Hard to answer, but a very simple question is what do these dads do that they can make it to all these things? And that brings us to why we do the things we do. We came to Arlington, I worked these years at the Navy Yard because I found the best job delivering eye-watering tools, technology, and capability to the fleet. But also I could be home for Mia, Hank, and Amy. Together we were able to put down some roots in the community, build some lasting friendships, and find ways to be and stay together. So in closing, I would like to thank my mother-in-law, Linda, for joining us today. Linda and the rest of the extended family provided support to Amy, me, and Hank while I was away. I'd also like to thank my mother, Becky, a self-described aging hippie, for nurturing the dream of a 12-year-old to go to Annapolis. I would like to thank Mia and Hank for just being great kids. And while not really letting it on, thinking that what I've done in the Navy is actually pretty good. And lastly, I'd like to thank my wife, Amy. She's been with me and beside me for the whole run. We had a good time and raised a pretty normal family. And you took care of all the little details so I could be a space cadet at home because I was either so absent or absent-minded about work stuff that was going on. We're still young, and we have something like 26 more Major League ballparks to visit. So it's about time we got along to getting it done. So I thank each and every one of you for coming today and letting me share a little bit of how we got here. I really appreciate to all my team members, all that you've done for our nation and for our Navy. And with that, I wish you all a fair wind to follow these things. Thank you very much for your time today, and thanks for coming. What's next, Warren? I gotta read my orders? This is the hard part. Attention to orders.
The audience can be seated.
You guys can have a seat. We'll stand. Tom, you can stay standing. From Combat First Com Millington, Tennessee, PERS 83. To Captain Andrew J. Thompson, United States Navy. Subject, Buford's orders, 0803. Your request to be transferred to the retired list was approved by the Secretary of the Navy effective 01 September 2023. When directed by Reporting Senior, detach in August 2023 from PEO Integrated Warfare Systems, Washington, D.C. Proceed to home of selection, regard, relieve of all active duty, effective at 2400 on the date of detachment.
Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Timothy King, United States Navy.
From Commandant First Com, Millington, Tennessee, to Captain Timothy L. King, United States Navy, subject, Buford billet sequence change. When directed by Reporting Senior, detach in June 2023 from the PEO Integrated Warfare Systems, Washington, D.C. Report no later than July 2023 to PEO Integrated Warfare Systems, Washington, D.C. Upon arrival, report to the Major Program Manager for duty as his relief.
Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Timothy King, United States Navy. Major Program Manager,
Wow, Drew really knows how to set the bar high. It is awesome to see so many faces from both past and present here today to properly send off Drew as he transitions to his next phase of his career. Thank you for attending today. Now, I'm so excited that this is for, you got this present for Drew. It's a bit stressing for me because my first test now is, and whether or not I can pass, is can I be brief, be sincere, and be seated. So let's see how I do. It's truly an honor to be able to come back to relieve Drew as IWS 6. What began with the Captain John Keegan email back in 2015 saying, come see him, he had an offer that he couldn't refuse to take the Deputy Director for Navigation possession, set in motion experiences and opportunities with various teams within IWS that have shaped who I am today. With those tours that followed, I was always amazed to see how Team 6 was evolving and continuing to deliver warfighting capability to the hands of our sailors. To now be able to come back and be a part of that evolution is truly awesome. Admiral Khanna, Team 6, I can't thank you enough for not allowing me only to come back, but truly welcoming me back into the team. The support you have provided me through the turnover has been nothing less than outstanding. You have reinforced my excitement to become a member of Team 6. Drew, IWS 6 is a great place because of your leadership. Thank you for everything, and best of luck in retirement. Thank you.
Captain Thompson will be retiring from the Navy after 27 years of active service. We give thanks for his many contributions, which in their own unique way have made our Navy a stronger and more capable force in our never-ending fight for peace and freedom. We thank him for his many dedicated hours and personal sacrifices that have helped make his many Navy commands the proud, professional organizations they are today. Just as this is the end of one phase in his life, it is the beginning of another. Our gathering today gives us the opportunity to wish him every success in the future as he looks forward to new challenges and rewards. Rear Admiral O'Connell will now present Captain Thompson and family with their retirement certificates. Certificate of Appreciation for Service in the Armed Forces of the United States of America. To Captain Andrew J. Thompson, United States Navy. I extend my personal gratitude and the sincere appreciation of a grateful nation to you for your patriotic service to our country. Your devotion to duty, honor, and country, in keeping with the long traditions of the finest military in the world, embody the American ideal of selfless service. Our nation owes you an incredible debt. Your commitment and the example you set will inspire future generations to serve with pride and to keep our country secure. You represent the best of our nation, and I join our fellow Americans in saluting your honorable service. I wish you happiness and success in your next chapter. Signed, Joseph R. Biden Jr., Commander-in-Chief. Certificate of Appreciation from the United States Navy. To all who see these presents, greetings. This is to certify that Amy, Henry, and Mia Thompson have earned grateful appreciation for their unselfish, faithful, and devoted service during their husband and father's naval career. Their unfailing support and understanding helped to make possible Captain Thompson's lasting contribution to the nation. Signed, W.J. Galanis, Vice Admiral, United States Navy, Commander, Naval Sea Systems Command. Mr. Joseph Murray will now present Captain Thompson with the departing gifts from the program office. Certificate of Flag Presentation presented to Captain Andrew Thompson in tribute for your faithful service to the United States Navy and to your shipmates on board USS John Paul Jones, DDG 53. The United States flag accompanying this certificate is presented to you. With this flag, you will carry the memories and experiences of an excited and fulfilling tour. Signed, R.L. Franklin III, Commander, United States Navy, Commanding Officer, USS John Paul Jones, DDG 53. Next presentation is from IWA 6. It's a sword plaque. And Lieutenant Commander Capper is presenting the coveted PEO IWS flag. Yes, please rise for the benediction and remain standing. Selfie. And remain standing for the conclusion of the ceremony and departure of our retired tribute.
Lord God, we thank and praise you as we commend and commit Captain Thompson and his family to your loving kindness and care. Recognize the great value of his service to the United States Navy and other military and civilian communities, and acknowledge the blessing he has been to those of us here today, as well as to our shipmates serving all over the world. Keep us all faithful and true to you, to our nation, and to the United States Constitution, and cause us to always remember and be motivated by the crucial role we play in keeping our country and its citizens safe and free from the tyranny that dominates so many parts of the world today. We support and defend not only the Constitution, but also the principles of morality and decency given to us in your word, which are absolutely necessary for the survival of democratic societies that endeavor to glorify you. We appeal to your great love and mercy as we recall and receive this benediction from number 6. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.
For 27 years, this sailor has stood the watch. While some of us were in our bunks at night, this sailor stood the watch. While some of us were in school learning our trade, this shipmate stood the watch. Yes, even before some of us were born into this world, this shipmate stood the watch. In those years when storm clouds of war were seen brewing on the horizon of history, this shipmate stood the watch. He stood the watch for 27 years. He stood the watch so that we, our families, and our fellow countrymen could sleep soundly and safely each and every night, knowing that a sailor stood the watch. Many times he would cast an eye ashore and see his family standing there, needing his guidance and help, needing that hand to hold during those hard times, but he stood the watch. Today, we are here to say, shipmate, the watch stands relieved. Relieved by those you have trained, guided, and led. Shipmate, you stand relieved. We have the watch. Bosun, stand by to pipe the side. Shipmates going ashore.
In keeping with the time-honored naval tradition, Captain Thompson will now be piped ashore. Military, attention. Bosun, post aside, boys. Captain, United States Navy, retired, and family, departing. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Captain Thompson and Captain King, thank you for attending today. You are cordially invited to the reception immediately following. Thank you.